Somewhere in your family tree is a person who could walk 400 miles across open country with no map, no compass, and arrive at a hidden spring exactly where they meant to. You can't find your car in the parking lot. They weren't smarter than you. They had a better system. And for almost all of human history, getting lost wasn't a quirk. It was a death sentence. The oldest working map on Earth isn't drawn, it's sung. For at least 65,000 years, Aboriginal Australians have navigated their continent through what English speakers awkwardly call song lines. Each song is a route. The lyrics describe in strict sequence the rocks, the water holes, the dry creek beds, the bent trees that mark the path, sung in the exact order they appear on the ground. Sing the song and you have the map. Sing it backward and you can walk home. A single songline can stretch for hundreds of miles and cross language boundaries, sung by peoples who don't share a dialect but share the song. And here's where the clean answer falls apart. They weren't just memorizing the land, they were encoding it. The information lived in the rhythm of the song itself, in the melodic intervals, in the order of the words. Lose the song, lose the country. An Aboriginal elder isn't a man with a good memory. He's a walking library, and the survival of his children depends on him passing the volumes on before he dies. Travel north into the Arctic, and the same problem produces a completely different answer. The Inuit developed a concept called sila, a word that lands somewhere near total environmental awareness. A sila-trained hunter reads cracks in sea ice the way you read a sentence. He reads the angle of snowdrifts to find a buried direction because wind blows from a dominant quarter and the drifts remember it. He watches the underside of clouds for a faint, pale glow called ice blink that betrays open water below the horizon, sometimes from 40 miles away. He listens to ice. See, ice talks. It cracks, it sighs, it groans, and each sound means something specific about the layer beneath it. The geographer Claudio Aporta has spent decades documenting Inuit travel routes across what looks, to an outsider, like featureless white nothing. The routes are precise. They cross hundreds of miles. And here's the detail that should not be possible. Experienced hunters can re-find a cached seal under fresh snow weeks later in a landscape that has visibly changed because they aren't navigating by what they see. They're navigating by a layered internal model that updates itself faster than the weather. Now move south into the largest blank space on any map, the Pacific Ocean. Around 3,000 years ago, the ancestors of the Polynesians began doing something that should not have worked. They sailed in wooden canoes into an area twice the size of North America, settling islands so far apart that some are closer to Antarctica than to each other. No writing, no metal, no compass. The anthropologist David Lewis spent years in the 1960s and 70s sailing with traditional Micronesian navigators and wrote a book called We the Navigators. They had a star compass divided into 32 points, each one named for the star that rose or set there. They read ocean swells the way you read traffic, feeling in the lift and roll of the hull, the signature of a wave that had traveled 1,000 miles from a storm they would never see. And then there's the move that should not work at all. It's called ETAC. As you sail, you pick a third island, one you can't see, hidden below the horizon, and you mentally track where it sits relative to the stars. It's a moving reference point, drifting backward through your imagination as you advance. By keeping that ghost island in the right place in your head, you always know where you are. For most of the 20th century, anthropologists assumed all of this was extinct. Then, in 1976, a man named Mau Piailug from the tiny island of Satawal stood barefoot on a wooden canoe called the Hokulea and sailed 2,500 miles of open Pacific from Hawaii to Tahiti. No compass, no GPS, no charts, roughly a month at sea. He arrived exactly where he meant to. He did it using a system his grandfather had taught him, which his grandfather had been taught, back through a chain of teachers older than most countries. When pressed, he described knowing the position of the sun on his skin, holding a star path in his head while he slept, and reading the water the way a doctor reads a pulse. And the strangest part is that the hardware Mau used is also in your head. Tucked behind your ears, in a seahorse-shaped knot called the hippocampus, sit two kinds of cells with a job description that sounds like science fiction. Place cells, discovered by John O'Keefe in 1971, fire whenever you stand in one specific spot in the world. Grid cells, found by May Britt and Edvard Moser in 2005, fire in a perfect hexagonal pattern across any space you move through, laying down an invisible mathematical lattice you walk on without ever seeing it. Together, they earned a Nobel Prize in 2014. Together, they make a map. Right now, reading this, your brain is silently logging your position against that map. The Aboriginal elder used this system to hold a song. The Inuit hunter used it to hold an ocean of ice. Mao used it to hold the Pacific. The hardware is identical. Yours is just running a much smaller program. And here's where you might want to brace yourself. In 2000, the neuroscientist Eleanor Maguire at University College London scanned the brains of London taxi drivers, the ones who spend up to 4 years memorizing every street in the city for an exam called the knowledge. Their posterior hippocampi were measurably larger than average. The longer they'd been driving, the bigger the difference. Later studies showed the effect reversed when they retired. Use the map grows. Stop using it, the map shrinks. And work by the neuroscientist Veronique Bobo at McGill has shown the part you really don't want to hear. People who habitually navigate by GPS show measurably worse spatial memory over time and reduced hippocampal engagement. The same brain region that built the song lines and the star compass is, in your skull, quietly going to sleep every time a small voice says, "In 300 feet, turn right." Most of what those ancient navigators knew is already gone. Mao Piailug died in 2010 after spending his last years teaching at a feverish pace, trying to hand down a body of knowledge that took thousands of years to accumulate. The Marshall Islands stick charts, woven palm rib models of how ocean swells refract around invisible islands, hang in museum cases now behind glass, while satellites do the work the sticks used to do. Songlines are still sung, but in shrinking numbers, in languages with shrinking numbers of speakers. We're not just losing tools, we're losing a way of being a body in the world. Your ancestors, every single one of them, no exceptions, could find their way home through country you couldn't survive in for a week. The hardware hasn't gone anywhere. It's just being asked, for the first time in 300,000 years, to do almost nothing. For roughly 300,000 years, the human brain was the most sophisticated navigation system on this planet. It could read stars, swells, wind, birds, ice, song, and the slow drift of a hidden island in the imagination. It treated the world as something to be known by heart because nothing else would keep you alive. Then, in about 20 years, we handed the whole job to a satellite. So the next time you walk into a parking lot and can't find your car and reach for your phone, pause for 1 second. Stand still. Feel the sun on the side of your face. Notice which way the wind is moving. An Aboriginal elder used this same brain to hold a continent in a song. An Inuit hunter used it to read a glow on the underside of clouds. Mao Piailug used it to find Tahiti in the dark. Every single one of your ancestors used it. You're the first generation that doesn't have to. The question is whether that's a gift or the quietest kind of loss.